good evening, and welcome. Tonight I'm going to be reading to you this book all about Turkey. We'll learn some cool facts about the country. Here we go. There's where Turkey's located. There's a gorgeous beach. Land of the Cotton Castle. Most people are astonished when they see the cliffs of Pamukkale in western Turkey. From a distance, it looks as if a sheet of ice is covering the hillside. A closer look reveals pools of water and a series of ledges. The white cliffs are not made of ice, but of a calcium-rich mineral called travertine. As sparkling water trickles from pool to pool, it leaves behind crystals of travertine, gradually adding to the 1.7-mile-long cascade. Ancient people named the cliff the Cotton Castle. They thought the waters could heal the sick and built baths and temples around the hot springs at the top of the cliff. The Romans thought that a cave up there was a gateway to the underworld. Anyone who went in never came out. They were probably killed by poison gas. Like I said in my video yesterday, I'm really bad at pronouncing Turkish words, so I apologize. Feel free to correct me in the comments if you know Turkish or you're from Turkey. A country and two continents. Turkey is one of the few countries of the world that serve as a bridge between two continents, Europe and Asia. Turkey is thought to be one of the first places on Earth where humans lived in towns, farmed crops, and made metal tools. In the many centuries since then, the country has been a stepping stone between Europe and Asia, and among the ancient civilizations of Greece, Rome, and Persia. Its geography makes it an important part of the trade routes between the two continents. As a result, it has often been fought over and settled. Modern Turkey is shaped by this wide range of influences. Surrounded by water. Most of Turkey is a huge peninsula surrounded by water on three sides: the Black Sea to the north, the Mediterranean Sea to the south, and the Aegean Sea, a small arm of the Mediterranean, to the west. Most of Turkey's land borders are to the east, where it meets Syria, Iraq, Iran, Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia. Turkey's only other neighbors, Greece and Bulgaria, are in the west. Here the country occupies a narrow strip of European land, divided from the rest of Turkey by a set of narrow seaways, the Bosporus, the Sea of Marmara, and the Dardanelles. Turkey's largest city, Istanbul, is built on the Bosporus and is partly in Europe and partly in Asia. Children living in Europe often go to Asia to see their grandparents, drinking orange juice on the ferries that cross the Bosporus every few minutes. Motorists drive from one continent to the other across one of Istanbul's two Bosporus bridges. How tingly is that? Bosporus bridges. Bosporus bridges. A new rail tunnel being built underneath the Bosporus will soon carry commuters and freight between the continents. Construction often has to stop when the tunnelers find ancient archaeological remains. A corner of Asia. The Asian part of Turkey is a huge peninsula called Anatolia. This area is a little larger than the U.S. state of Texas. Western Anatolia is a fertile plateau and forms the main farming region of Turkey. The Aegean coast in the west is also fertile and grows olives and fruits. The beaches along this coast are a haven for tourists. High and dry. Eastern Anatolia is more mountainous. The eastern Anatolian highlands cover the northeast and spread out of Turkey to connect to the larger Caucasus Range. Turkey's longest range, the Taurus Mountains, runs from the south coast to the eastern border. The southeastern foothills of the Taurus Mountains are home to the Kurdish people, who speak their own language as well as Turkish. There are also small groups of Arabic-speaking Turks. This is the poorest part of Turkey. Its cities are relatively small. The countryside is too dry for growing crops. The country's largest lake, Lake Van, is located there, but its water is too salty to be used for irrigating the soil. However, the Taurus Mountains are the source of the two largest rivers in the Middle East, the Tigris and Euphrates, which in Turkish are called the Disl and Firat. I have to have said that wrong, my goodness. This is one of those books that leaves out all the accent marks, so I don't know if that's a soft C. Whatever. These rivers carry the meltwater from the mountain southward all the way to the Persian Gulf. The river systems are now being dammed to provide water and electricity and give the region a much-needed boost. A haven for birds. Turkey is an important stop on the routes that migrating birds take between their summer and winter homes. My chair's really squeaky right now. Let me just, there. Birds prefer to fly over land than over sea, so many birds traveling back and forth between Europe and Africa take the eastern route along the Mediterranean through Turkey. Each spring and fall, thousands of birds take a rest around Turkey's marshlands and lakes. As its name suggests, Kuzgolu, or Bird Lake, is one such place. The shallow lake is in one of Turkey's protected national forests. It is surrounded by reed marshes that are fed by floodwaters from the lake. Together, the different habitats provide homes for more than 270 species of birds, including various kinds of ducks, geese, pygmy cormorants, and blue herons. These look like pelicans. Yep, pelicans. Natural crossroads. Turkey's history has been governed by the way it links Europe and Asia, and its natural history is no different. Some of the country's plants and animals are typical of the Mediterranean region, while others are related to wildlife found in the Middle East. There are two main types of habitat in Turkey. The central and southeastern parts of the country are generally too dry for trees to grow. Instead, the landscape is covered in steppe or grassland. Forests and woodland is the natural habitat of the rest of the country. However, people have lived in Turkey for so many centuries that most of the forests and other natural vegetation have been transformed into fields or pastures, or are regularly harvested for lumber. Golly scoots. Trees galore. The lushest forests are in the mountains along the eastern Black Sea coast, where rain falls at all times of year. The trees in these forests include sweet chestnut, oriental spruce, and alder. These green forests contrast with the drier woodlands in the west of Turkey, which contains small oaks, juniper trees, and pines. Animals come and go. Turkey is home to many animal species, including bears, wolves, lynx, and jackals, although most of these are now rare. In the early 20th century, Turkey even had a population of tigers, an animal normally found in South and East Asia. The last Caspian tiger in Turkey was shot in 1970. Turkey's 3 seas are a haven for fish, which provide a valuable source of food. But not all Turkey's sea life is faring so well. Several of the long sandy beaches on Turkey's Aegean coast are used by loggerhead turtles to lay their eggs. There are few suitable beaches left because tourists who are also attracted to the golden sands scare the turtles away. Turkey's Mediterranean monk seal is also at risk of extinction due to pollution. Dolphins live in all the seas around Turkey. In fact, the sea mammals are a relatively common sight in Istanbul as they travel along the Bosporus. Sometimes dolphins stay a while in the city's warm waters, swimming into the Golden Horn, a long, narrow inlet that cuts through the European part of the city. I'm kind of covering up this picture because there's a snake there. And I know people who are very sensitive to pictures of snakes, so I'm going to uncover, so be warned. My chair really squeaked there. Here we go. I think it's cute. Look at its little horns. Okay, chair. There we go. A rich blend. The Turkish government has set up many national parks and reserves. In a country like Turkey, it is impossible to separate the natural world from its ancient human past. For example, hikers in the Yazili Park in western Turkey can enjoy the mountain scenery as well as read the ancient Greek road signs carved on boulders. The trail through the park was once the main highway of the Persian Empire, center of civilizations. What is she doing? Oh, she's in Çatalhöyük. That's awesome. Turkey's location at the meeting point of Europe and Asia and its rich resources have attracted many people to try to claim it for themselves. The modern country has been shaped by a complex and long history. Central Turkey was home to one of the earliest settlements in the world. Çatalhöyük was built 8,800 years ago. 8,800 years ago. Excavations have revealed 13 different layers of buildings, each built on top of an earlier settlement. About 150 mud brick houses were all joined together with no streets between them. People entered through holes in the roofs. Between 5,000 and 8,000 people lived in the town. They decorated their buildings with murals and reliefs. Archaeologists have found many clay figurines of the mother goddess they worshipped. The Trojan horse. Land of Kings. After the Hittite Empire disappeared in about 1100 BCE, many other groups ruled Anatolia. They included the Phrygians. Their most famous king was Midas. His story of greed is known around the world. Another wealthy Turkish king was Croesus, who ruled Lydia. This was the first civilization to make coins. To this day, enormously wealthy people are still said to be as rich as Croesus. People from what is now Greece began to settle in western Anatolia. The two cultures influenced each other. The people of Anatolia took up Greek traditions and but Greek culture also changed because of its contact with local civilizations. By 334 BCE, the Macedonian Greek leader Alexander the Great had conquered most of modern Turkey. After Alexander died, Anatolia was invaded from both the east and the west, as one group after another tried to claim the territory. World religions. Anatolia became the Roman province of Asia Minor in 129 BCE and got a break from the frequent invasions. Soon after the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, his supporters came to Anatolia to preach. Christianity grew quickly, but so did Roman efforts to stop people from following the new faith. However, when Constantine became Roman emperor in 324 CE, he protected the Christians. By this time, the western part of the Roman Empire was becoming weaker, while the eastern part of the empire was becoming stronger. Constantine needed a new capital that was nearer to the more prosperous, peaceful east. He chose the ancient city of Byzantium on the Bosporus. He renamed the city Nova Roman Constantinopolitana, which meant New Rome and the city of Constantine. Later, the city became known simply as Constantinople. As Rome and the Western Empire collapsed, the Eastern Roman Empire ruled from Constantinople grew stronger and was transformed into what would later be called by historians the Byzantine Empire. In the same way, the Christian Church also split in two. Catholics remained based in Rome, while the Orthodox Church was run from Constantinople. The roosters are crowing. Alright, they're still crowing, but I'll try to edit them out. Anyway, in the 7th century CE, a new religion emerged in Arabia, Islam. Muslims soon settled in eastern Anatolia. Muslim groups arrived both as invaders and as peaceful settlers and brought their own arts, laws, and customs. Anatolia would become an important part of the Muslim world, which had first been centered on Damascus in modern Syria and later on Baghdad in what is now Iraq. Warriors on horseback. In the 11th century, Seljuk nomads came from Central Asia to dominate the Muslim world. They spoke a language similar to modern Turkish and had already converted to Islam. They created a huge empire that included much of today's Turkey. Hey, rooster. Seljuk ideas, poetry, and science still influence the world today. My landlady has 2 roosters, and someone further down the street also has a rooster, and they all set each other off. It's so annoying. Anyway, later, The Seljuks began to fight among themselves. Eventually, the empire divided into different Seljuk states. While Seljuk sultans fought against each other in the 12th century, Christian armies from Europe, known as Crusaders, took over much of Western Asia, including parts of Turkey. A mighty empire. In the 14th century, there were many battles along the frontier between the Muslim and Christian worlds. One of the Muslim leaders attacking the Byzantine Empire was a nomad chief named Osman. His descendants, the Osmanlis or Ottomans, formed the mightiest army of the time. In 1453, Ottoman forces did the unthinkable. They took Constantinople. The city had been thought indestructible because it was surrounded by water on 3 sides and guarded by huge walls. Eventually, the Ottoman Empire ruled not only Anatolia but also the Balkans as far as Vienna in Austria, and the whole Middle East from Algeria to the borders of Iran. For several centuries, the Ottoman Empire was the main power in the Middle East. It fought off attacks from Persia to the east and the Habsburg Empire to the west. Living together. In peacetime, the Ottoman Empire was a hub of learning, art, and technology, centered on its vibrant capital, Istanbul. The great architect Sinan, for example, designed some of the most beautiful mosques ever built, such as Suleiman Mosque in Constantinople. The empire contained a mix of peoples and cultures with Christians, Muslims, and Jewish people all living together peacefully. The Sultan's power over his many people stemmed from his army. New recruits from the Ottoman army were collected into the devshirme system. Non-Muslim boys, mostly Christians from the Balkans, were taken from their families and raised as soldiers and sometimes government officials or viziers. Most of these slave soldiers became Muslims. As a result, their own sons were exempt from the devshirme. Empire's end. The Ottoman Empire finally ended in the years around World War I. Millions of Ottoman Muslims were forced to leave their homes as states emerged in the Balkans. Waves of immigrants arrived in Istanbul between 1912 and 1915. Peoples in Romania, Greece, and Bulgaria fought to establish their own nation-states. Defeat in World War I weakened the Ottoman Empire further. An army led by Mustafa Kemal fought to establish a Turkish nation-state in Anatolia. As the Turks fought to establish their new country in the Turkish War of Independence, civilians in the region were caught up in the conflict. Many Greeks and Armenians left the country, while many Muslim Greeks arrived. Mustafa Kemal became first president of the Republic of Turkey. The modern republic. Mustafa Kemal insisted on making Turkey a secular country that would someday retake its place among the powers of the world. In the 80 years since the republic began, Turks have struggled over what their country should be like. 3 times an army has taken control of the government to maintain order. Today, Turkey is a democracy. Still, Turks continue to grapple with the questions that caused conflicts in the 20th century. What kind of democracy do we want? What should be the place of religion in our society? What do we want our country to be like? A hospitable mix. Soccer is the national pastime in Turkey. And for Turkish fans, the finals of Euro 2008 were unforgettable. Twice their team scored dramatic late goals to win key games. That's the best. People poured into the streets of every town in Turkey to celebrate. In the semifinals, Turkey faced its great rival, Germany. The 2 countries had close ties, but in the past, the relationship was often uneven. About 2 million Turks live in Germany as guest workers. They began arriving in the early 1960s to take low-paid jobs because there was little work in Turkey. Since then, Turkey has grown more wealthy. It is on course to join Germany in the European Union. Not anymore. Turkey lost the soccer match built in many ways. But in many ways, Turks felt for the first time that the game was a meeting of equals. Yeah, Turkey's not joining the EU anytime soon. Extending the family. Happy is the person who calls himself a Turk, said Turkey's first president, Ataturk. The quotation is everywhere throughout the country, written on posters, on statues, and even in huge letters on hillsides. But just who are the Turks? According to the Turkish government, Turks are the people who live within the boundaries of Turkey and those who hold Turkish passports even though they live abroad. There are still many people living in Central Asia who speak languages similar to Turkish. Historians believe that the first Turkish-speaking people moved into Anatolia from Central Asia centuries ago. Since then, all the different groups who conquered Turkey left people behind. A modern Turk is the descendant of many kinds of people. Descendants of Hittites mix with those of the Greeks and Romans. The Ottoman Empire included people from the Caucasus, the Balkans, and the Arab world, many of whom moved to live in what is now Turkey. On the streets of Turkish cities, the mixing is clear. Turks look as if they come from everywhere. They sound as if they come from everywhere too. There are many people in Turkey whose first language is not Turkish. Depending on where they live, they might speak Kurdish or Arabic at home. However, all children must learn to read and write in Turkish at school. Diversity is also reflected in clothing. People dress differently around the country. Village women often wear scarves and their pants are baggy. In Turkey cities, people dress much the same as they do in America. Some follow the latest fashion, others wear whatever is handy. Religion in Turkey. Up to 97% of Turks are Muslim. Most are Sunni, belonging to the branch of Islam followed by most Muslims around the world. Many Turks are secular. Others are deeply religious. They pray 5 times a day, fast during the holy month of Ramadan, and try to model their lives on the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. The Constitution makes religion a private matter. People are not allowed to bring religious symbols into schools or government offices. Recently, the Turkish parliament has voted to allow women in universities and colleges to cover their heads with scarves, a common practice in Muslim culture. Some people see this as a sign that the government has become more tolerant. Others see it as a potentially dangerous threat to the principles of secularism. Millions of Turks are Alevis. They share the Muslim belief in one God and in the prophecy of Muhammad. I hope I'm saying that right. But Alevis have an inclusive faith that also includes beliefs from many world religions and traditional Anatolian culture from before the arrival of Islam. The numbers of Christians and Jews in Turkey fell in the 20th century. However, an important leader of the Orthodox Church still lives in Istanbul. There are Armenian churches and schools, and small groups of Assyrians, Catholics, and Protestants are scattered around the country. Jews have lived in Anatolia since the 4th century BCE. The Ottoman Empire provided refuge for Jews fleeing the Spanish Inquisition in the 15th century, and again protected Jews fleeing from the Nazis in the 20th century during World War II. Today, however, there are fewer than 50,000 Jews in the whole of Turkey, mostly living in Istanbul. Family first. For Turks, family is very important. Young men and women usually live with their families until they go away to college or get married. Even then, they often find a place to live near their parents. Families get together regularly for dinners and holidays. Children may visit their cousins and grandparents on weekends. Turkish children are required to go to school from age 6 to 14. After that, most go on to high school. There are public schools and private schools. All Turkish children study a foreign language at school, as well as Turkish, math, science, and history. At the end of high school, all students take a test. The score from this one test decides what subjects they can study for a degree and which college they can attend. Hospitality. Turks have a famous tradition of hospitality, not only to friends and family, but also towards strangers. Even shopkeepers insist that shoppers drink tea before beginning to talk about what they are seeking. Some people believe that this ancient tradition has its roots in religion. Turks often invite visitors to their homes. When the visitor arrives, he or she is offered a pair of slippers to replace outdoor shoes. It is almost impossible for a guest to leave before accepting something to eat or drink. Juice, strong tea, and sweet coffee are the usual beverages. They are often served with something salty and something sweet to eat. A lucky guest will be invited to stay for dinner. Turkish cuisine is world famous. A popular saying about Turkey is go for the history and stay for the food. Many dishes contain lamb, eggplant, or yogurt. One of the most popular dishes is kebab, grilled meat served with bread or rice, which is sold everywhere in fast food restaurants called kebabchi. Another popular food is hamsi. The small fish from the Black Sea is called the Prince of Fish. There are even songs and stories about it. Color and sound. Turkey has a long tradition of cultural achievement. Under the Ottomans, poetry and architecture were both highly prized. Other artistic creations were carpets and rugs with complex, colorful designs woven from wool or silk, and handmade decorated tiles, which were widely used both inside and outside mosques. Turks also have a rich musical tradition. When Ottoman armies went into battle, they took a marching band to intimidate their opponents, complete with loud drums. Today, the streets are often full of the sounds of the latest American, European, or Turkish pop songs. Traditional music is still popular, however. Many poets have written about the haunting sound of the ney, a flute that is still used in some Turkish music. The oud is a stringed instrument like a guitar with a roundish back. For centuries, people in Anatolia and Turkish speakers outside Anatolia made melodies with these instruments. Modern Turkish musicians use these old instruments to compose new music that straddles centuries. Ancient but modern. Turkey has the 17th largest economy in the world. Its supplies of iron support a large car manufacturing industry. Its cotton harvest makes it a leading producer of textiles. A less important but distinctive resource is flowers. Turkey is a major exporter of rose oil, which is used in perfumes, cosmetics, and alternative medicines. Rose water, which is flavored with rose petals, is used in one of Turkey's most famous foods, Turkish delight. This gel-like candy was first made in the Ottoman Empire 500 years ago. Today's economy is highly modernized. In 2006, Turkey joined with Azerbaijan and Georgia to build a 1,099-mile oil pipeline from the Caspian Sea to the Turkish port of Ceyhan. The project helped supply Turkey's growing energy needs. Positions of power. Turkey is one of the few democratic nations in the Muslim world, and that makes it a valuable member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, Defense Alliance. Turkey is a neighbor of Iraq, Iran, and Syria, three nations that often express distrust of Western ideas and values. That means it's strategically important. That makes it strategically important in world affairs. The Turks continue to face important issues. In the 80 years since the Turkish Republic was established, there have been 4 military coups. The army last seized power in 1980 to stop violence erupting over political disagreements. Each time the army has tried to create stability, the Turks are now working on a new constitution that they hope will improve the freedom, prosperity, and civil rights they want. Threats to peace. Turkey faces other challenges too. Among them are the group of Kurds who want to establish their own Kurdish homeland. Another potential challenge is the tension between Turks who want a more liberal and tolerant government and those who believe that the country should remain as it is. In 2007, the Justice and Development Party, or the AK, a moderate rightist party, was re-elected by an overwhelming majority. It ran on a platform of anti-corruption, sound economic policies, and continuing the process toward European Union membership. The Prime Minister was from the AK party, according to parliamentary procedure. The President, who was elected by the Parliament, was also from the AK party, as it had a clear majority. A third problem is one faced by many countries: terrorist attacks. Both Kurdish and Islamist terrorists have planted bombs in Istanbul and other cities in the last 2 decades. They have killed thousands of military and civilian victims. The final challenge is economic. Despite its resources, Turkey has been unable to provide all of its citizens with a high standard of living. This is partly because Turkey relies on exports to make money. That makes it vulnerable to changes in the world economy. Rich resources. Turkey once boasted that it was one of the few countries that could produce enough food to feed its whole population. Today it both imports and exports food. Farmers rely on a wide range of farmland to grow different crops. Nuts are an important export crop, so are grains, vegetables, and dried apricots. Among Turkey's most valuable resources are its rivers. The southeastern Anatolian project, known as GAP, has built 22 dams on the Euphrates and Tigris rivers. The dams provide water for land that would otherwise be too dry to farm. The government has also built 19 hydroelectric power plants to generate electricity from the dams. Water disputes. GAP aims to improve the whole region by supporting better education and economic development. Southeast Anatolia is now Turkey's leading cotton growing area. Many towns in the area are growing into industrial centers. The dams are the most controversial GAP projects. The Euphrates and Tigris provide water to Turkey's neighbors, Syria and Iraq. Those countries complain that they are not getting enough water. Each year, Turkey and its neighbors resolve the problems by diplomatic negotiation. Growing economy. Turkey's economic growth has had positives and negatives. In the 1980s and early 1990s, prices rose so quickly that money became nearly worthless. In 2001, the government introduced a new currency, YTL, or Yeni Turkish Lira, which means new Turkish Lira, to try to stabilize prices. The economy improved. Turkey now exports many cars. Other major exports include cloth, clothing, steel, and medicines. Turkey's tourist industry has also grown. Visitors come to see its ancient sites or to enjoy its beaches. People from throughout the Middle East visit to shop. The Sehevir Mall in Istanbul is the largest mall in Europe and the sixth largest in the world. I can't say that word, sixth. Sorry. For the latest time in its long history, Turkey is acting as a bridge between the East and West, from Europe to Asia. Turkey will likely play a major part as key transportation and communication routes for the Balkans, Central Asia, and Southwest Asia continue to develop and link up with the global economy. And that's the end of our book for the night. There we go. There. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found this video relaxing and educational. Have a very good